What if the ultimate sign of a successful life isn't, your bank account or your career title or even your marriage certificate?
Right.
Like, what if the highest flex of human existence is simply your ability to stare at a cloud on a Tuesday afternoon without feeling a single shred of guilt? Welcome to today's deep dive.
It's quite the question.
It really is. So today we are exploring a fascinating, deeply countercultural essay written back in 2008 by Xu Feng. It's simply titled Eight Kinds of People That Xu Feng Admires. And our mission today is to unpack a radically different definition of success that just, flips modern societal pressures completely upside down. We are going to look at a literal roadmap to stripping away artificial burdens and rethinking what actually makes a good life.
Yeah, and it is a genuinely subversive piece of writing. I mean, we live in a culture built entirely on the idea of constant accumulation,
Right,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
Like accumulating wealth, accumulating status, hitting specific societal milestones by a certain age. But this text suggests that true freedom isn't found in what you gather, but in what you are willing to let go of. It targets the very foundations of how we measure our own worth.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to understand higher level happiness or, spiritual fulfillment, we first have to tackle the physical baseline of survival. The author argues that before you can even think about joy, you have to achieve a state of zero debt and maintain good health.
That's the foundation.
Right. If you don't owe anybody money or property, like if you haven't borrowed a dime from the bank and you have basic shelter and food, the text says you are already living the life of what it calls celestial beings.
And that imagery of a celestial being is crucial here. The text paints this vivid picture of someone who possesses no villa, no expensive car, and no brand name clothes.
Right. They can't even afford to eat in expensive hotels.
Exactly. Yet, because they owe nothing, they can calmly watch the clouds gather and scatter during the day and just look up at the stars at night with total serenity. Good health is paired directly with this, too. It's described as a treasure that mountains of silver and gold simply cannot buy.
To put that into a modern context, living with debt is a lot like trying to run a complex software program on a computer where, 90% of the RAM is permanently taken up by background processes.
That's a great analogy.
You have absolutely no processing power left to appreciate a sunset or watch a cloud because your brain's background anxiety, the mortgage, the car payment, the credit card bill, is just eating up all your cognitive bandwidth.
Yeah, it drains you.
But I do have to push back on the author here a little bit. From a practical, real-world standpoint, isn't some level of debt or ambition necessary to just survive nowadays?
Well,
I mean, to get an education, start a business, or escape poverty, is he really suggesting it's better to be broke as long as you can look at the sky?
what's fascinating here is the underlying psychological state the author is actually targeting. The text isn't really glorifying poverty for the sake of suffering.
Okay, so what is it doing?
It specifically targets the crushing anxiety of being on the run for livelihood. The text explicitly asks the reader to notice how many people are constantly worried, constantly running just to survive.
Just to keep their heads above water.
Exactly. The baseline for a peaceful life, according to Xu Feng, isn't luxury or upward mobility. It's the complete absence of foundational anxieties. If your ambition requires you to trade your daily peace of mind for a decade of crushing financial pressure, the text argues you've made a terrible trade. You've given up your RAM, as you put it, for an illusion of security.
You basically trade the reality of the present moment for a hypothetical future where you might, maybe, finally be allowed to relax.
Right.
So if we manage to close out those background processes, like if we secure our physical health and free ourselves from financial debt, the essay suggests we are ready for the next, much harder step. We move from physical survival to psychological deprogramming. We have to free our minds from societal scripts.
Yeah.
And, the author goes straight for the jugular here by targeting the institution of marriage.
Oh, yes. The text takes a highly controversial stance here. I should note, as we analyze this, we're just unpacking his arguments, not necessarily endorsing them. But he claims that unmarried people possess the greatest freedom on earth.
The greatest freedom.
Yeah. It points out that an unmarried person can wake up in the middle of the night without disturbing anyone and give their money away without being supervised or restricted. And then it contrasts this with married people, warning the reader not to be fooled by their outwardly smiling faces.
Wait, really?
Yes, claiming that inwardly they are often extremely distressed.
That is incredibly abrasive to modern sensibilities. Wow. But I guess it connects directly to the author's broader warning about seeking the extraordinary.
Exactly.
Because the text explicitly warns us against desperately pursuing extraordinary status. It says that people who chase this end up overburdened, going off into wild fancies, resorting to trickery, and sometimes even ending up in prison.
Which is a stark contrast to how society usually operates, right? We are constantly told to stand out, to be exceptional, to disrupt the status quo, and leave a massive legacy.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Pursuing the extraordinary is basically jumping onto a gold-coated hamster wheel.
A gold-coated hamster wheel, I like that.
Right, because it looks incredibly impressive to everyone watching you from the outside. You're spinning fast, the gold is shining, but inside you are absolutely exhausted and you aren't actually traveling anywhere. You're just performing for an audience.
And that brings us to the core philosophical pivot of the essay. According to the text, human distress isn't caused by a lack of achievement. It is deeply rooted in the inclination to make comparisons with others.
The comparison trap.
Yes. If you live your life constantly looking sideways, measuring your internal reality against someone else's external presentation, you will inevitably end up miserable.
It's the difference between buying a reliable old car because you just need to get to work versus draining your savings for a luxury car simply because your neighbor just pulled up in a brand new Tesla.
Exactly.
The utility of the car is identical, but the psychology behind the purchase is driven entirely by comparison.
Precisely. And this is why rejecting these societal milestones like forced marriage or the endless chase for exceptional status isn't framed by the author as giving up. It's framed as gaining the wisdom of the greatest creator.
By embracing the ordinary.
Right. The text beautifully describes the person who embraces the ordinary. It says they treat simple food like delicacies. They work when the sun rises and they rest when the sun sets. And rather than envying someone else's garden, they are blossoming your own flowers and bearing your own fruit. By doing this, they're basically modeling their lives after nature.
Because nature doesn't compare. Like, an oak tree doesn't sit around feeling inadequate because it's not a pine tree.
It just does the business of being an oak tree.
Right. But let's look at the logical extreme of this philosophy. If we reject the traditional social bonds like marriage contracts, and we stop climbing the corporate ladder, and we stop trying to impress our peers, don't we run the risk of becoming completely isolated? Are we destined to just sit alone in a room, blossoming our own flowers in total solitude?
It's a very natural question to ask, but the author's answer is a resounding no. In fact, the text argues that by removing artificial connections based on status or legal obligation, you finally clear the space for true wealth.
And what does that look like?
Well, that true wealth takes the form of deep, entirely unburdened connections. The essay highlights this by admiring people who have confidants and those who have same-sex bosom friends.
And the descriptions of these relationships are so intense. Let's start with the confidant, which is framed in a deeply romantic sense. The text describes this connection as yin and yang, blending to make up Tao.
To understand the weight of that phrasing, we really need to quickly translate the philosophy behind it. By invoking yin, yang, and Tao, the author is describing a state of perfect natural harmony. But more specifically, it connects to the Taoist concept of wu-wei.
Which roughly translates to non-action.
Right? Or non-interference, yeah. It means letting things unfold naturally without forcing them.
And that non-interference is the massive neon sign in this section of the essay. The text says that you and your confidant miss each other day and night. You have great fun together, but you do all of this without intending to possess or control each other.
Which is very counterintuitive for most people.
Right, let's be real for a second. Human biology and psychology are fundamentally wired for attachment. We are wired to fear losing the things we love. So how do you actually untangle the feeling of deep romantic love from the desire to possess or secure that person?
If we connect this to the bigger picture of the essay, we can see exactly how the author approaches that paradox. Xu Feng is deliberately separating the legal and social institution of relationships from the pure connection of a confidant.
Okay, making a distinction between the two.
Exactly. When a relationship relies on a contract or mutual control or jealousy to keep it intact, it operates on obligation. The argument being made is that the strongest, most authentic bonds are built entirely on free will. It's the wu-wei concept in action.
You love the flower, so you water it and let it grow.
Yes. If you try to possess the flower by ripping it out of the dirt and putting it in your pocket, you kill it. The text suggests that when you completely remove the desire to control another human being, what remains is pure, unadulterated attachment.
That reframing changes everything. It means the person is choosing to be there every single day, not because it's legally difficult to leave, but because they genuinely want to be. And that idea of a purely voluntary, unbreakable bond bleeds right into the author's description of the bosom friend. Honestly, the examples used here are wildly specific. The text notes that it is exceptionally difficult to find a true bosom friend.
The requirements are wonderfully stringent, and they really highlight the psychology of unconditional reciprocity.
They really do.
Uh,
A bosom friend, according to the text, is someone you can wake up in the middle of the night just to share your secrets with. They're someone who stays close to you, keeping a smiling face, even if you swear at them or kick them.
it's an intense level of loyalty.
And in the most vivid example of all, a bosom friend is someone who would literally jump in front of a striking cobra for you.
The cobra image is extreme, but it illustrates a profound psychological truth.
It really does. I mean, I have some fantastic friends, but if a venomous reptile lunges at us, human instinct says we are both scrambling in opposite directions. So to have a bond so deep that it overrides the basic human instinct for self-preservation, that's incredible. Why does the author believe this level of loyalty can only exist outside of normal societal structures?
Because of the difference between obligation and pure reciprocity, notice the pattern in all of these examples. The person who will take a cobra strike for you, or who will cheerfully let you wake them up at 3 a.m. while you're having a crisis, isn't doing it because society demands it.
They aren't doing it because they signed a networking agreement.
Right. They are doing it because the connection is completely unburdened by artificial expectations. They share your weal and woe simply because they recognize and value your soul. When a relationship is entirely voluntary and free from the transactional nature of modern networking, it paradoxically becomes stronger than steel.
So let's map out the journey the author has taken us on. We started by surviving, securing our health, and eliminating the background RAM usage of financial debt.
Then we deprogrammed ourselves.
Right? Rejecting the hamster wheel of seeking the extraordinary and refusing to compare ourselves to others. Finally, we rebuilt our lives with pure, non-possessive connections and ride-or-die friends who will literally fight snakes for us. If you actually achieve all of this, what is the final result? Like, what does the pinnacle of human existence look like?
This leads us to the eighth and final trait of the people Xu Feng admires, and it is perhaps the most surprising conclusion to a philosophical text one could imagine.
It totally upends the archetype of the serious, brooding philosopher, doesn't it?
It really does. The final kind of person the author admires is simply this: people capable of entertainment.
People capable of entertainment, like just being fun.
Exactly. The text elevates play and joy to a strict spiritual requirement. It makes the bold claim that people in paradise all know how to play and entertain. Conversely, it states that people who are dull, boring, and lack a sense of fun have no chance to go to the heavenly kingdom.
That is such a breath of fresh air compared to modern hustle culture. Today's productivity gurus constantly preach that you have to suffer, grind, and be hyper-serious to achieve greatness.
Oh, constantly.
But this essay argues the exact opposite. Being fun is basically your VIP pass to the heavenly kingdom. It says that if you are knowledgeable and wise, but you are also humorous and capable of bringing happiness to others, you are a diamond among people. Living with you is like living in heaven itself.
It is a profound synthesis of everything we've discussed. True wisdom, according to this text, isn't about stoically enduring life. It isn't about accumulating vast libraries of serious knowledge just to sit on a mountaintop with a permanent scowl.
Right.
The ultimate flex of human existence is the ability to find humor, play, and joy in an unburdened life. If you are still weighed down by debt, or exhausted from comparing yourself to others, or stressed by trying to control your partner, you literally do not have the capacity for true, uninhibited play.
So what does this all mean for you? The author wraps up the essay with one final sweeping promise. If you manage to embody these qualities, like if you ditch the financial debt, stop the exhausting comparison game, reject the pressure to be an extraordinary success, cultivate pure friendships, and most importantly, never forget how to play, then you are undoubtedly an angel.
And the author states that they will not only admire you, but they will follow you closely. It is a complete paradigm shift.
In what way?
In this framework, success is no longer defined by what you have aggressively added to your life. Success is defined entirely by what you have successfully removed and the immense unburdened joy that naturally rushes in to fill that empty space.
It's realizing you don't need to build a massive castle to be happy. You just need to step outside and look at the clouds.
But before we conclude, there is a piece of historical context regarding this text that fundamentally changes how we must view it today.
Oh, yeah.
Xu Feng wrote this essay in March of 2008.
2008. That's right before the iPhone became ubiquitous and right before the massive explosion of modern social media platforms.
Exactly, and this raises a really important question. The essay was written in the final moments before our lives became exponentially, irrevocably tied to digital comparison.
Because back then, if you wanted to compare yourself to someone, you had to actively look at your neighbor's driveway or hear a rumor at a dinner party.
Right. Today, we carry a machine in our pockets that is algorithmically designed to show us the most extraordinary moments of billions of other people's lives, 24 hours a day. We now carry the debts of our daily attention everywhere we go.
Wow, that's a heavy thought.
If avoiding comparison was the key to being a celestial being in 2008, it is arguably 10 times harder and 10 times more vital today.
We've basically invited the entire world onto our gold-coated hamster wheels. You don't even have to leave your bed to feel inadequate anymore. You just open an app.
Which leaves us with a critical application of this philosophy.
Hmm.
If you were to look at your own life today through the lens of this 2008 roadmap, what is one ordinary thing you can reclaim from your digital life? What is one background process, one point of comparison, or one artificial burden you can shut down today to get just a little bit closer to that angelic freedom?
A question to truly sit with the next time you find yourself endlessly scrolling, wishing your life was extraordinary, instead of just walking outside and watching the clouds gather and scatter.